welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in July and or my July wrap-up. I am very, very proud of myself. So my July TBR had 17 books on it, and I actually read 15 books. So I'm pretty sure that's the most I've read for a month this year. Normally it seems like my average has been about 11 books per month, but this month I did 15. I almost did my whole TBR. I'm so happy. I did veer away from my TBR a little bit towards the end because I'll talk about, but one of the books was just so good. Like, I was trying to read books and nothing was like catching my interest because this book was so good. So it gave me like a little reading slump, not that big of a reading slump obviously, but a little one. So yes, I personally love reading. I, at the beginning of this year, kind of shifted my channel to being mostly book content. So if you love reading, especially if you love young adult literature and like books set in the Victorian era or like vampires, this is the channel for you because those are all of the types of books and literature that I like to read. And yes, if you like this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button down below. I normally post twice a week, either Sunday or Monday, and then Wednesday. And yeah, let's get into all the books that I read for July. I do a mixture between ebooks and physical books, so I'll start off with all the physical books that I read for the month of July. And if you watched my summer TBR list, I will put a little link in the corner for you if you're interested in that. I want to read books that are going to transport me to somewhere that I'm not going to be able to travel to. So the first book that I read was Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welsh. And this book transported me to Florence, Italy, and it was absolutely gorgeous. We have our main character Lena, who recently lost her mom, and her mom's kind of dying wish was that she would go and spend the summer in Tuscany and with this man that she knew back when she was in college. And Lena believes this man is her father, so she's like, oh, I have to get to know this person who hasn't wanted to be in my life like my entire life, and I have to move across country away from my friends. But she meets a boy. She has kind of a little mystery to solve because when she gets there, one of her dad's friends gives her this journal about her mom and everything that she did while she was in Italy when she was in college. So she's kind of reading this journal and going and seeing what her mom saw when she was there and kind of figuring out why her mom wanted her to go to Italy so bad. So it was really good. I believe I gave this 4 stars. It was a 3 or 4 stars because it was really good and I really enjoyed it, and I really want to read Love and Look and Love and Olives, but I don't have those yet, so I'm going to have to get them. Then during my little 24-hour readathon that I did, I read The Tiger's Promise by Colleen Hook, which is actually a prequel novel to the Tiger's Saga. And this is an older YA series, and this was just really good. It's about kind of what led up to the 2 brothers in the Tiger Saga being cursed and turned into tigers, and kind of the girl that they were both in love with. So this was really cute. It was a quick read, and I believe I gave this 4 or 5 stars because it was really good. And it's just a little novella. It was a little over 200 pages, so I got this read very quickly. Then I had also started to work on my Summer of Love and Misfortune, and this is by Lindsay Wong. This transported me to China. We have Iris, who is she's a tiger, but she's apparently an unlucky tiger or something like that. And so she just, everything she does, she screws it up. She's bad at school. She doesn't get accepted to any colleges. She throws a party and then wrecks her parents' like BMW. Like, all this stuff happens, and her parents decide that they're gonna go and send her off to China to live with her uncle, who's the half-brother of her dad. And so she kind of, I guess, discovers what she's really passionate about, and of course she meets a boy, and there's like some drama that goes on over in China, and it was really good. I'm pretty sure I gave this one 3 stars, because I have been really looking forward to this book, and it just didn't end up being as amazing as I thought it was going to be. It was still very enjoyable, it just wasn't like, I don't know, I was really looking forward to reading this. It's been on my like TBR future list for a while. Like, I had been planning since I think like the beginning of this year to read this during the summer, and it just wasn't as amazing as like I had put in my head that it was going to be. But it was still good, and I do recommend it. Then I reread the first book of the Tiger series, which is Tiger's Curse by Colleen Hook, and this transported me to India. So we have Kelsey, who is in the foster care system, and she gets a job at the circus. And part of her job is to help, like, feed and, like, take care of this tiger named Durin. And she ends up getting offered a chance to go to India with the tiger as its kind of caretaker, because this really wealthy gentleman has decided to purchase this tiger and needs to take him back to India. Well, the tiger is one of the 2 brothers that have been cursed. So she finds out that these 2 guys are cursed, and the tiger is actually this prince from like several hundred years ago, and he's been trying to break this curse for a while now, and for whatever reason, the gentleman who bought him is like his, I guess like his assistant. It's his assistant, and for whatever reason in the past, his assistant was never able to convince the people who owned Durin to sell him, but then for whatever reason, once Kelsey shows up, they're able to persuade the circus owner to sell him. And it's actually, he's like, the tiger is super wealthy and has like this mansion over in India, and they kind of go on a quest to try to break this curse. And it's not completely broken in the first book, because I think there's 5 books total. But I really liked my reread. I think I gave it again 4 out of 5 stars, the same as the first time I read it. And I'm planning on continuing the series in October by reading the second book. So and I just love this. Look at this cover. These covers are amazing. I'm pretty sure that's why I originally picked this series up, is because the covers are just so gorgeous. Then I also read The Humbug and the Mask of Red Death by Harold Shinkter. And these are books 2 and 3 of the Edgar Allan Poe mystery series. And I started reading The Humbug in June. I think it was like halfway through, and I didn't actually finish it. So I finished this in July, and I read all of this. I technically finished this August 1st because I had like 8 pages left. And I finished like the last 8 pages today, early this morning. But I'm counting it as July because there are only 8 pages left. Like, it's going on my July. So this is a continuation. It's basically like a Victorian mystery series where Edgar Allan Poe is the main character, and he's solving these mysteries that are happening in, Baltimore and New York? I believe Nevermore took place in Baltimore, and then these both took place in New York. In this one, actually both of them. Both of them involve P.T. Barnum, and this one is more so based on him, and like Edgar Allan Poe meets him for the first time. And then this one involves P.T. Barnum also, but it also involves Kit Carson, and he comes to New York searching for this killer who killed his wife. And they were really good. I think I gave this one 3 stars because I didn't think like the reveal or like the red herrings leading up to whodunit was that good. Where this one I think was executed better, and like I knew I kind of had a clue what was going on for part of the reveal, like halfway through the book, and so like I got confused because I'm like, no, I know that person did it, I know they did it, and then later it's like, oh, okay, so I don't want to spoil it. I don't know how many of you have read this or will be reading it. It is an out-of-print series, so you probably have to find it at your library or use somewhere. But I do love this series. If you love Edgar Allan Poe or Victorian mysteries, I would suggest this series. Alright, the next book I read was A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 3.1 of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I really enjoyed this. I believe I gave it 3 or 4 stars. And this is basically like what happens after book 3, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then A Court of Silver Flame. So this is kind of like a little Christmas story in between. And it was really cute. And yes, I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to be reading A Court of Silver Flames in August. My battery died in the middle of filming this, and so I started reading that while I was waiting for my battery to charge, so I'm already like 40 pages in or something. But yes, so I really like this. Then I read Christ the Lord, The Road to Cana by Anne Rice. And this is the second book in her Life of Christ series. And this is following Jesus as he's trying to discover what his mission is, and like his trials in the desert, and then gathering his first disciples. So this was very interesting. There was like some fictional stuff that she kind of just added in that wasn't biblical. But it was really good, and I love Anne Rice, so I believe I gave this 3 stars. Then I read The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and oh my goodness, this was a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I literally read the first page, and I was like, this is going to be amazing. So this is the book that after I read it, I kind of had like a reading slump. The Maidens is about this group therapist who is contacted by her niece who goes to Cambridge and is like, there's, girls are being murdered. I think my best friend was murdered, and I believe our professor did it. Can you come to Cambridge? So she goes to Cambridge, and like all this stuff happens, and like the ending is crazy, and like Greek mythology is woven out through all of the book, and I want to say the narrator is kind of unreliable because we're following her and like how she views things and views her life, which might not actually be accurate. So the ending like blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. I did not see it coming till like maybe the last like 20 pages or something, but it was crazy. So after I finished reading this, I started to read The Damned by Renee Ahdieh. And I did eventually finish it later in the month, but I put it to the side, and I picked up Stain by A.G. Howard, which I didn't actually finish. And then I picked up The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I ended up, this is the one that kind of like, I guess, got me out of my slump. It was interesting. I didn't know that it was a sapphic romance, which can be kind of misleading because it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So Evelyn Hugo is like this very famous movie star from like the 1950s to 1980s, and she contacts this, I think it's a magazine or journal company, and says, I want this girl to do a piece for this upcoming dress sale that she's having, because she's going to be selling all of her like dresses that she wore on the red carpet and everything. So she wanted to do an exclusive interview, but only with this journalist. The journalist shows up and then finds out that Evelyn Hugo actually wants her to write her biography, and that, you know, the journalist can have all the proceeds, she can get all the credit for it, but she wants to make sure that the journalist portrays her life the way she wants it to be portrayed. And that's when you find out that her greatest love was this other actress, and her 7 husbands are kind of all like pawns, or like, she basically almost uses all of them to get something. Like, she uses people. Like, Evelyn Hugo is not a good person. Her 5th husband, Harry, though, she actually did love, but he was into men, not women, but he wanted a family. So they got married and had a child together, but then they had their own separate lovers. And I really liked him. He was my favorite character, and I thought he was the least toxic person in, like, this whole story. Like, there's so many toxic people, and, like, the things they do are so messed up. But, like, I just felt like he seemed like a pretty generally good person, and I almost cried at something that happens to him. So, like, I didn't actually cry. This has probably got me the closest to crying this year, was because I really liked Harry. So I believe I gave this a 4 out of 5 star, because the writing's good, the story was okay, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and I really only liked one character out of the whole book. So, but it was really well written, so I will give it that. And then the last physical book I read was Crave by Tracy Wolff, and this I believe I gave a 3 or a 4 star. I don't remember, because it was good, but I felt like the book was a little too long for what it was. I know, like, a lot of people were like, oh, this is a Twilight ripoff, da da da. It kind of is, but, like, then it, like, shifts. So, like, if you get, I'd say, 3/4 of the way through, it completely changes. This girl loses her parents, and her uncle brings her to Alaska to this boarding school that you then find out is filled with supernatural creatures. And the guy she likes is a vampire, and he warns her to, like, leave, but everyone's, like, telling her it's dangerous and she shouldn't be there and she should leave, but no one's telling her why. Like, everyone's just expecting her to take at face value what they're telling her and to flee. And she's like, this is a boarding school. What do you mean it's dangerous? What do you mean I shouldn't be here? I don't belong. Like, y'all aren't making any sense. So I thought that was kind of really funny that she, like, people just thought that she'd be like, oh, you're telling me it's dangerous to be here, so I'm gonna leave. Even though I have nowhere else to go because my parents are dead and my only living relatives are at this school. So, like, I thought that was a little, like, stupid. And it takes you a really long time to actually find out that this is a supernatural school that she's at. And it's like, or it takes her a long time to, like, figure it out, even though, like, some things are, like, very blatant about them trying to tell her without actually telling her. So, yeah, the ending was good. I had a feeling who the bad guy was as soon as I met them. So, yeah. I will continue on the series because I did get the Bookish Shop, like, limited edition series, and I want to get all of them in the regular one, or the regular edition, so I can read them. And I did enjoy it, and I think now it's going to get more interesting, and I think the second book, is Crush. I think the second book is going to be from Jackson's perspective because of something that happens to Grace at the end. So I'm looking to see, like, what happens next. So, yeah, it was really enjoyable. It was a fun time, but I feel like they just spent too much time trying to convince her to leave the school instead of getting on with the plot. Like, so yeah. Now on to the ebooks I read. So the first one, the first ebook I read was The Ghost Bride by Yang Shi Chu. And this is a, like, Chinese-inspired, almost like ghost story, I guess. So this girl is asked if she'll be the bride, the ghost bride of this wealthy, well-known gentleman who died, because he wants to marry her for whatever reason. and stuff happens, and she ends up actually traveling into the world of the dead and having, like, trying to find out how to come back, and, like, all this, like, political stuff that's kind of going on in the land of the dead. So it was really interesting. I believe I give it 4 out of 5 stars because I really like the concept, I like the characters, I like the story and the setting, but I didn't really like the writing style. Like, at sometimes I found the story being a little boring because I didn't really like the writing style. So that's why I knocked a point off, because the writing was just boring sometimes. And I'm not sure if this is a translated story or not. That might be the issue with it. Like, in, like, the original language, maybe it, like, flows better and, you know, is more cohesive? I don't know. But yes, I did really enjoy that one, but not a fan really of the writing. I also read Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeanette Ning, and this was another book I read during my 24-hour readathon, and I think I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars because I was really excited for it. I thought it was going to be super amazing, and it was just kind of really slow, and I mean, it was interesting, but it was very slow. So it was just slow, and it's about this girl goes from the human land into the fairy land to find her brother, who is a missionary, and it's set during the Victorian period, and it's like in this, like, her brother is set up at this, like, kind of creepy house that has, like, doors that, like, open into, like, nothingness, and, like, the people who live, or I should say the fairies that live in the house, are, like, trying to give her hints to, like, a bigger picture going on, but then they stop, and then, like, oh, I shouldn't have told you that. So you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, but it's also, like, a theological story about, like, souls and who has souls and who gets to go to heaven and who can be saved and different stuff like that, which I do like theology, and I find that interesting. But that's not what I wanted from the story. I wanted more of, like, a Victorian mystery story, and it was very theological. So if I had gone in knowing that, and if it was a little more fast-paced, I probably would have enjoyed it more. The cover of the book is amazing. That's actually what drew me in. I saw the beautiful cover, and then I saw, like, Victorian missionaries go to fairyland, and I'm like, yes, please, I want that. Give it to me now. So yes, it was good. It was just too slow. Then I also read The Initial Insult by Mindy Guinness, and I believe I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Most of the books I read this month were a 3 out of 5 star. The author takes a whole bunch of ideas and concepts from Edgar Allan Poe's various stories and put them into a book. And it was a fast read, but there were elements that didn't make sense, and then the ending was a little open ending and wasn't very clear on exactly what happened, so I was left feeling like not completed. I felt like I was left hanging, but not really by, like, a cliffhanger, just because it was very, like, they tell us what happens, but the way it's worded and the way that it happens is kind of confusing about what happens. Like, I'm not really sure how I feel about this book. I do know that I think it's supposed to be, like, the first of a series, so maybe once the second book comes out and I read it, it will make more sense, and then maybe my opinion of the first book will change. But as of right now, the first book was, like, really confusing, and I could see, like, all the different elements that she was taking from Edgar Allan Poe's stories to make, or that she used and, like, input into her own story, but I didn't know if they always worked, or if they always made sense, and it was just kind of weird. It was a weird story, to be honest with you. So yeah, I will continue this series in the hopes that the first book will make more sense, because I do want to know, like, what's going on. So she did a good job at making go, what's going on? Why was this certain creature used in its perspective, like, focused on, when I don't feel like it really contributed to the first book at all, really. So maybe we'll be explaining the second book. But yeah, that one was interesting. Then I read The Damned by Renee Audier, and this one I started reading, I put it to the side, and I went back. My biggest issue, The Damned is the second book of the beautiful And my biggest issue with it was I was like 25% of the way through the book when I put it to the side, because I was getting like, I think at that point we had 4 different people's points of view. You had like Odette, Jay, Sebastian, and I forget who the other person was, but you had 4 people's points of view. We hadn't even gotten back to Celine. Like, they were talking about Celine, but we hadn't actually gotten her viewpoint or anything. And it was really focusing on Sebastian and like his, something happens to him and he's trying to get over it, but he's kind of being like an angsty teen about it. And so I think it was like right after I stopped, I think 26% of the way through, is when Celine's perspective actually showed up. And then I think it was alternating between Celine and Sebastian. So once I picked it back up and it started just being between their 2 perspectives, then I enjoyed it more and I was able to read it pretty quickly. But that's what kind of drew me off. So this is just a continuation. It basically tells us what happened after the first book. And I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars. I might have given it 4. But I did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the next book. I think it's called The Righteous, that's coming out in December. So I'm looking forward to that. And yes, that is all of the books that I read in July. Most of it was fantasy, because that's what I love. And also quite a bit of vampire stuff too, which yet again is what I love. So let me know down in the comments below what you read in July and what books you're looking forward to reading in August. And I hope to see you all next time. Bye-bye!